brothers and sisters, rejoice. Pleasure beyond imagining awaits you. Desire, pride, pain, excess in all things. Partake of perfection. Give yourself to the Dark Prince. Feast on the delights of this world! Submit to Slaanesh!
Raise buildings and sing songs in my glory. In my name pursue your arts and enshrine all beauty. Let all people follow their every desire, sate their every hunger, and deny themselves no adventure. For it is in these things and in others that you will find the greatest pleasure, and it is through these things, and through each other, that you shall rise yourselves higher, even unto the steps of my throne. You will take pleasure in all that is, though your bodies will break and your souls be forfeit. For I am Slaanesh, most jealous of gods and most demanding of lovers, and my thirst for you shall never be sated. Though all 4 Chaos Gods are quite adept at recruiting and beguiling mortals to their banner, none do this with more ease and with more capability than Slaanesh, the youngest of the 4 Chaos Gods, known also as the Dark Prince, the Lord of Excess, the Prince of Pleasure, and the God of Perfection. Slaanesh is, in every respect, the most alluring and most repulsive of the Chaos Gods. A master of alluring pleasure and temptation, no mortal can gaze upon Slaanesh and not be bewitched into servitude to the Dark Prince. Like all the Chaos Gods, Slaanesh has no set gender. However, he does prefer a more androgynous appearance as opposed to his brothers, and the flamboyant manner in which he behaves has led some to consider Slaanesh the more feminine of the Chaos Gods. He's also known for not picking one particular form to set with, unlike the other Chaos Gods, who tend to pick one form and stick with it. Slaanesh likes to change it up. All Chaos Gods feed on and draw influence from emotions and sensations of mortals, but Slaanesh is unique in that he draws influence from the most excess and passionate of desires. This makes Slaanesh one of the most dangerous of the Chaos Gods, but also one of the weakest. Slaanesh toys with the desires and aspirations of mortals, and while none are immune from his temptations, some are far more susceptible than others, such as artists, dancers, nobles, and deviants. Those who peddle in exotic beauty, pleasures, artistry, and, of course, exotic fetishes will seek new heights of passion and creativity, which Slaanesh is more than happy to provide. As the mortal partakes of higher and higher excesses of their craft, they will crave more and more, never being satisfied, new thrills always being sought after, longing for that next great pleasure, that next great indulgence. And this is both the delight and the curse of Slaanesh, for as the pleasures fade, the world becomes more empty, leaving the loyal cultist as nothing but a husk, having basked in the all too familiar joy of this world, and all that this world can offer feels gray. And now they can only find pleasure and satisfaction in self-mutilation or pain. Pain becomes their pleasure. Bondage, lacerations, and self-mutilation becomes erotic. But it's not just pleasures of the flesh that Slaanesh can fuel or be fueled by. Art that warps the very mind and soul with its distortions and unnatural designs. Dances and movements that seem to defy physical sense and restraint that leaves one mad with fear and uncertainty. It is through every art, every pleasure, and every sensation that drives mortals that Slaanesh's seed will find fertile soil within. Any and all can fall to the temptation of the Dark Prince, even some who you would expect to bow to other Chaos Gods. Magicians, for example, you would think would seek Slaanesh, for he is the god of magic. But some mages don't seek knowledge, but rather the perfecting of their craft, to shine brighter and stand out from other mages. They will seek the Prince of Perfection, who will add beauty and splendor to their craft, fueling them with their innermost desire for more. Warriors you would expect to seek Khorne, the god of war and battle, but there are warriors who do not seek strength in battle, but rather glory, those who only wish to outperform their peers and enemies alike, who wish to master the martial disciplines and achieve ever higher levels of skill. Slaanesh can give this by making their craft more beautiful, refined, and perfect. Some warriors only seek pain in their craft. Khorne does not appreciate pain, but Slaanesh relishes it. Those who worship Slaanesh are often keen to break restrictions imposed by civilized society. They are rebels and will dress, behave, and speak in manners most would consider unrefined or uncivilized, for it is Slaanesh's desire to see the world fall to debauchery and decadence. Carnal pleasures are sought only by those who understand that the restrictions of mortal affairs prevent one from achieving true happiness. Joy and elation can only be achieved by those who take it, removing from themselves fears imposed on them by society, civilization, the rule of law. In other words, let the world burn, for it is in the flames that true fun can be achieved. And it is for these reasons that the other Chaos Gods fear Slaanesh, though they would never admit it openly. For all the other Chaos Gods feed on that which has limits. Khorne craves battle, but one day he will probably run out of enemies to fight. Nurgle seeks the greatest of plagues, but in time he will run out of new pathogens to share. And Tzeentch may plot, but all plots and plans have a conclusion. But there is no ending to the decadence, passions, and sinful, lustful desires of mortals, which Slaanesh tends to like a mother does a babe, nurturing the wicked and base desires of her followers, which will never know an end. As long as mortals continue to seek new pleasures, sensations, and new experiences, as long as they feel jealousy, passion, and invigoration for the new, the untried, and the risky, Slaanesh will always find fresh acolytes, and the other Chaos Gods know this. It's for this reason that, from the time of his birth, the other gods have made a point of trying to keep Slaanesh under heel. In the world of Warhammer 40k, Slaanesh was born from the collective murdering, fornication, and debased actions of the Eldar, who did these things in such extremes that it shattered the Immaterium, creating a hole in the warp called the Eye of Terror, from which Slaanesh was born, and he began instantly feeding on the souls of the Eldar. Nurgle's first action upon the newly formed Chaos God was to wage war on him and put the fledgling god in his place, so to speak. And in Warhammer Fantasy, during the End Times events, the Chaos Gods joined forces to collectively dominate the world. Slaanesh realized that in doing this would mean fewer mortals to fuel them and fewer opportunities for him to gain strength, so he planned in secret to sabotage their efforts. The other Chaos Gods learned of this and turned on Slaanesh. And as the world was destroyed in preparation for the Age of Sigmar, Slaanesh was lured into and trapped in the realm of glooming, where souls of the Alvin that Slaanesh had gorged on for countless generations were being regurgitated and released back into the mortal world. But only a fool would think Slaanesh to be weak or incapable because of this. Slaanesh's only weakness is that the sensation of excess and higher pleasure can only be felt by intelligent creatures and races, unlike other creatures or lesser beings who all can be manipulated by Nurgle, Tzeentch, or Khorne. But with that said, even the other gods are not immune to Slaanesh. When Slaanesh presented chalices of his own design to each of his brothers, Nurgle and Tzeentch were quick to accept the gifts. But Khorne, well, he wasn't going to take anything from Slaanesh. Revolted by the chalice of war that was offered to him, he shattered the gift. And yet, despite having shattered it, he could not bear to see it lay in shambles before him. So he painstakingly gathered the pieces and worked to rebuild it. But once he finished, he shattered it again in shock and disgust. He repeated this process several times. Such is the power and alluring abilities of Slaanesh. This testament to his power, even over the other gods, is frightening indeed. Now all the Chaos Gods compete and fight amongst each other, but no rivalry of the gods is more potent and fierce than Khorne and Slaanesh's endless feuding. It might seem strange as Slaanesh relishes pain, and Khorne is the god of war and combat, thus it is very accustomed to pain for Khorne, but the difference lies in motive and approach. Khorne focuses entirely on the exterior and the physical strength of one's body and character. Khorne doesn't care for emotions, passions, or carnal desires. His content is rage only. Rage and bloodlust. Khorne feeds one's rage and anger, making his followers stronger and more powerful, but sapping them of their drives, desires, and individuality, all seeping into one endless river of pain and battle. But Slaanesh focuses on the inward. Slaanesh toys with the emotions, desires, and passions of his subjects, causing them to grow numb over the time. His subjects become desperate for more pleasures and sensations that push them to even higher levels of depravity. Though they might not be as physically strong as Khorne's followers, they are more numerous and far more loyal. Decadence is the start of perversion, which then leads to abomination, and lastly into complete depravity. While Khorne will grant his boon swiftly, bringing rage and power immediately to his followers, Slaanesh takes delight in slowly corrupting his followers, carefully leading his minions into further damnation. And Slaanesh's realm, known as the Realm of the Dark Prince, is unlike any of the other realms of chaos. There are no barriers or walls here to keep out intruders or invaders. Quite the opposite. The Dark Prince is eager to invite all to come and enjoy the splendors of excess and depravity. His castle sits in the center of a great pavilion made up of 6 inwardly drawn rings. These rings, the rings of temptation, hold every form of temptation imaginable. In the first ring, the ring of avidity, the intruder is presented with riches beyond imagining, gold, jewels, and diamonds in tremendous measure, but touching even one spells damnation, as the one who touches them will be turned into a gold statue to join the endless riches they wish to partake in, much like King Midas. The second ring is the ring of gluttony, where mountains of food and delicacies await the intruder, but to partake in this feast will lead the victim to eat and gorge themselves until their body explodes. The third ring is the ring of carnality. Demonettes dwell in this ring and will take any sexually pleasing form the intruder desires. If the intruder pursues them, they will ask him to remove his heavy armor and throw away his cumbersome weapons. Woe to the man who does, for they will then reveal their true nature and rip the man limb from limb. The fourth circle is the ring of paramountcy, wherein the intruder will see visions of all nations, kings, and generals bowing to him, having power both physical, political, and social like he'd never dreamed of. But he must run away from these illusions, for if he does not, he would be trapped in a never-ending loop of paranoia, fear, and anger that comes to all who hold power, leading him to wander aimlessly in his own mind filled with fear and terror. The fifth circle is the ring of vainglory. The intruder will see all of his greatest accomplishments and feats laid out before him, but if he stops to bask in his past, he will be surrounded by mocking voices and faces, laughing at him for his failures as well, mocking him for his weaknesses, his inability to claim eternal glory, and eventually he will die from the shame alone. And the final circle before the palace is the ring of indolency. There the intruder will see himself standing upon a glistening and beautiful beach of white sand and soft lapping waters, promising peace and rest. For a world so lost in war and pain like Warhammer, this is a sight very few mortals could bear to walk away from. But they must, and quickly, for to enter those sandy shores and pause for even a moment would grind your body to nothing, and your bones would turn to sand, to join the dunes on which you walked. Only those with the strongest of wills can hope to cross all 6 circles and confront the palace of Slaanesh himself, who is all too eager to meet one who conquered all of the temptations. Unfortunately, there is no mortal alive who could look upon Slaanesh and not have their soul ripped asunder, for Slaanesh is the most jealous of gods, and what he desires he will take, for nothing lays beyond his reach. Excess in all things, partaking in the delights of creation and imagination in equal measure. Pain, desires, pride, obsession, and perfection. All of these things and more, the embodiment of the Dark Prince, Slaanesh. I actually really like Slaanesh as a concept for a Chaos God. To me, Slaanesh embodies what I would expect of a demon or Satan to be like. It's funny because when I look at the other Chaos Gods, yes, they're typically portrayed as evil or malicious, but from a Judeo-Christian standpoint, I always saw the devil and Satan as being, tempters. They want to tempt you into becoming the arbiter of your own destruction. They want to present you with sin. The whole idea of sin is sin is supposed to look appealing. It's supposed to look appetizing. Be it gluttony, lust, greed, avarice, all these kind of things. You see these things and you think, I want this. You're not thinking about the negatives, you're only thinking about how good it looks, and I really like that Slaanesh kind of plays on that. It's funny because Slaanesh presents kind of like what you'd expect a succubus to be. Slaanesh is heavily inspired by succubi from Judeo-Christian lore, as Satan, that kind of thing. The presentation of something beautiful and alluring and captivating, only it's your own downfall. And what I like is Slaanesh is the god of perfection, the god of excess. And the idea is we often think that to become perfect, we must give in to excess, because perfection is never enough, is it? We can never reach perfection. None of us can ever be truly perfect. So we constantly keep having to reach higher and higher and higher. I'm still not good enough. I'm still not good enough. I'm still not good enough. And you never will be. So you keep trying to gain more and more and more, and it's just never enough, which I think is very fitting for Slaanesh. Now, the funny thing is, Slaanesh, every Chaos God kind of embodies something good too. There's something good to them, and for Slaanesh, it's pretty obvious. It's love, it's passion. The funny thing is, excess of anything is bad, but there's nothing wrong with passion. Passion can be a very good thing. Love can be a very good thing. The striving to make yourself better can be a good thing. If done in moderation, passion can be a very good, helpful, even necessary thing to being human, to being mortal. The problem is Slaanesh is not just the god of passion. Slaanesh is the god of excess, of too much, of taking too much. That's why I think Slaanesh is so creative. There's nothing wrong with passion when it's tempered. There's nothing wrong with partaking in fun things of material value as long as it's done with self-control, but Slaanesh doesn't do self-control. That's not Slaanesh's thing. I also like that I used to read, one of the first Slaanesh things I read was the Caiaphas Cain series, and in the Caiaphas Cain, I think it was the third book, we actually see a Slaaneshi cult fighting against Cain, and I noticed that at one point Cain, one of the heroes, cuts off the arm of one of the cultists, and instead of her falling over and screaming in pain, she starts going, again! She wants more. Because she's become so caught up in the excess of pleasure, pain has become new pleasure. Very masochistic-like, and it's kind of creepy all at the same time, but very, very unique. It's actually funny. Two things, and I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble for saying them, but number one, I always kind of thought of Slaanesh as a female. It's a little weird, but I found it hard to use male pronouns with Slaanesh because I always kind of saw Slaanesh as female. Did anyone else? Am I the only one who kind of thought of Slaanesh as a chick? Not that I think all chicks are like Slaanesh. I just always kind of pictured that. And two, and this is going to be kind of funny, I always saw Slaanesh as kind of this jab at the modern woke SJW, especially alphabet people cringe fest that we see on the news all the time. Because quite often whenever I see chaos cultists of Slaanesh described, they're described as wearing bondage-like clothing, very provocatively or flamboyantly dressed, having very odd-colored hair, wearing multiple piercings, and engaging in sexual activities that range on the bizarre. I just think that's really interesting that these Slaaneshi cultists embody so much of what I see on the news when talking about like a pride parade or something. Yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble for that, but I just think that's funny. Look, the thing with Slaanesh is temptation is the name of the game, and while Slaanesh definitely gets a bit of a reputation as being whorish or slutty, I should say there's a lot more to Slaanesh than just being sexual. I think that quite often artists or dancers or musicians, people who partake in passion projects are just as susceptible to Slaanesh, and I think that's amazing because here's the thing, Slaanesh would work so much better as a vengeful evil god in our world than the Warhammer world. In Warhammer, it's a world of war, so Khorne and Nurgle are going to have a lot to work with. Tzeentch, a good bit, and Slaanesh, yeah, a good bit too. But in a world like ours, where we're not necessarily at war all the time, and we have the time to really indulge in our pleasures and passions, think about the world we live in, guys, the way the news talks about, like, we always hear stuff like, it's not wrong to do these things, it's okay to do this. We hear that kind of thing all the time. Like, what's wrong with a little bit of pleasure? What's wrong if it makes you feel good? Do what you want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. Well, that's Slaanesh's breeding ground right there. That's Slaanesh's fertile soil where she can start planting those seeds, saying, hey, you know what, here you go. Like, yeah, she's the one who would say that too. Yeah, what's wrong with this? It's just a little bit of fun right there. Yeah, you enjoy that. But then it's not enough. You need a little bit more. Yeah, that's no problem. You need a little bit more here. Have a little bit more of that until it's getting to the point where you no longer recognize yourself, and it's never enough. You feel numb to the world, and that's when Slaanesh has you, you know? That's what's so creepy, but also so fascinating about Slaanesh. That's why I think Slaanesh is probably one of my favorites, because there's something very frightening about that. Don't get me wrong, Nurgle's frightening. Khorne's kind of frightening. Tzeentch confuses me, but Slaanesh is scary. The concept of Slaanesh is scary, and I like that. So definitely, I really enjoyed doing this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed this crash course on Slaanesh, and I hope you liked my thoughts on them. I hope you liked my little description and the little voice thing I did at the beginning. I had some fun with that. It was kind of creative. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.